Hi everybody and welcome to Forward Motion. I'm Karen Allen. I am very excited because we are in a great location with a very talented guy. And we're going to do two parts because he's made so many films, we actually have to delve into each one. He is a videographer, he is a documentarian, and one of my faves because he's also local and I am a big fan of his films. James Bonato, that's his name, and welcome. Thank you so much, and I know we've known each other for years, which is probably why you're uncomfortable, but I have followed your filmmaking, and I have followed your various video enterprises, because you're a well-known videographer in the area. You do weddings, you do events, you do all kinds of exciting things, which I, as a visionary, so-called, meaning wanting to make documentaries, wanting to make films myself, you've actually done it. So I kind of lived through you, and which is why I enjoy your films so much, because they are local. You do them, you travel everywhere, but you're a local guy. You're from Germantown, Maryland. So welcome, and thank you.
Thank you for having me, Karen. It's great to be here. I'm very flattered that you have me on your show.
Well,
and I'll tell you why I'm flattered.
Please do. I'm flattered.
I've seen the show a number of times. You have some really intriguing people on there.
Oh, you're the one who watches.
Well, I can't believe you're putting me into that group. So I'm glad to be here.
Not only that, I love when, even if I know someone who has worked as hard as you have worked over the years to make your art, and then beyond what you make money doing, to delve into the subjects that really get to you. And that's kind of what I like about your films. Through you, they get to us. I wouldn't even be here with you if I didn't have personal involvement, I mean intimate involvement, feelings-wise, from you making films. I don't know these people, you know, I don't know anybody from your films, but they touch me. And that, I think, is talent. So here you are shooting weddings, events, mitzvahs for years and years. What I want to know first is, why did you want to make films and documentaries? What got you into the other side of it, the side that you were doing for yourself and at your own expense?
Absolutely, absolutely. Sure. Well, wow, the 4 documentary films that I've made, they all have a theme to them, and that's what drew me into it. The theme is pretty much perseverance, all right? I think that we have to claw and scrape our way out of our predicaments, and I think the resiliency that we have in each other or in ourselves, sometimes it's hard for us to see that we have resiliency, but it's there, and I bring that out to the forefront in all of my documentary films. I think we have challenges and obstacles in our life, and I think they're supposed to be there. Otherwise, how would we grow? Okay? And I'm glad that they're there, because if we didn't have those challenges, I wouldn't have any documentary films to make.
I don't believe that. I believe that you're an auteur, that you are a complete artist, and that you think about not only the perseverance or the goal of your film, but also how shooting it and how the filmmaking part, the editing part, can actually help send the message that you want to be sent to everybody. And I also just admire the fact that you've been speaking to people for various subjects of your films. You speak to people, you educate people about subjects that are of interest or bother you or rankle you or touch you. And I'm going to talk about, later on, what my favorite of your films is.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a two-parter, and that's because we have 2 films to talk about in the first half. And the next film, which will be part 2, we'll talk about the other 2 films.
Okay.
But that's because I want to hear a lot about it, and also the fact that you organize these things yourself and travel all over the place at your own expense to get certain people on camera and then edit it together. This takes time, and it is not money-making.
No.
Your money-making job, the job that pays your mortgage, is more of your videography.
That's right.
For weddings and things like that. Now, weddings are beautiful. By the way, you do a beautiful wedding. You do beautiful events. I mean, that takes a certain talent. So let's go with your first film, which was 2015, right? 3 cameos.
That's right.
First of all, you went from being a videographer for years and years to this first film, which wasn't that long ago, if you think about it, considering the amount of time that you have been making videos, all kinds of videos, and being on your own. Why, in 2015, did you decide, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this film, because the first one has to be the hardest to get going on, because none of us can get, most of us have that challenge in getting going anyway. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. You did it. So can you talk about that a little?
Sure.
What's your method of madness? Because I think
Right.
it's madness, but also art.
Right, right. Yeah, so, yeah, Three Cameos was my first film.
My head hurt really bad. I had a headache for like a week straight. I don't know, that part like was really difficult. I don't know. Sorry. It just, it felt like everybody, constantly tells you how you should feel. It's like, well, it's just in your head. Just, read some jokes or, like think happy thoughts and you're gonna feel better. And it's just not like that.
And that was the film that I cut my teeth on. And, well, of course I cut my teeth on it. It was my first film, right?
That's
I
what I mean.
remember,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes, yes.
It's a big difference from videoing weddings.
I was in the embryo stages and I didn't know what I was doing, all right? I was like, okay, I had 3 cameos, 3 people in there. And the film is about 3 different people who come from 3 drastically different backgrounds. And they all have 3 different mountains to climb in their life, all obstacles in front of them, and they're kind of deemed unreachable by the general public. But these 3 people, they say, I have the perseverance, I have the resiliency to do it, okay? And so I remember sitting down with them in the embryo stages, and I said, all right, guys, we're going to get from point A to point B. And how we get from point A, which is where we are now, to point B, where you want to be, that's going to be the film. Well, guess what, Karen? It's not a straight line. It loops around and curves, and hopefully it gets to a point, because there's no script in a documentary film, all right? And I was not prepared for that at all. As a matter of fact, I ended up losing my first 3 people. I joke with my other documentary film colleagues, and I say, it really should be called 7 Cameos, because it took 7 people to get to the final 3. But the final 3 have 3 really, really good mountains to climb. And I tell the story, and they finally made it, and that was my first film.
And that was a mountain for you to climb. So no wonder your first film was about perseverance.
Yes,
You
exactly.
definitely You have to produce. I'm a producer. I know what it's like. You have to do the legwork to try to find people, and then those people pre-interview them, and then eliminate who is not like the ultimate, or whatever reasons you would lose them, for example, or it took you longer to. I mean, just nothing goes as planned, because it's kind of hard to have a plan, like you said, with a documentary, unless you're like a consummate professional, which you now are, I think. Anyway, so those 3 that you got, can you just briefly say what each mountain they had to climb? I want it to be inspiring for the audience, too,
Okay,
not just
yeah.
me.
Well, I can tell you a little bit what their goal was. One wanted to make a book, one wanted to be an architect, and one wanted to run a 5K race on one leg, okay? And of those 3 stories, I don't want to tell you, Karen, which one of the 3 makes their goal. Maybe all 3 of them do. I don't want to say which, maybe all 3 of them fail. And I don't want to tell you, and I'm smug about it, because I'm trying to get you to watch the film, right?
Exactly, and I've seen the film, and I'm not going to tell, but we are going to let everyone know how they can watch your films. Because after all this, JamesBonatoVideo.com, which will be on the screen here and there in the shows, but I do want them to watch the film and see how you also grew from one film to the 4th. So they may or may not have made it, but you said you started with 7. How did you lose, and how did you come to the final 3? Or you lost a few, gained a few, or...
Wow.
That's a lot of interviewing.
Yes.
Did you have to travel all over the place? And how do you pay for all this?
Well, all the weddings that I make money on, that's how I pay. But the first guy just dropped out of the film, and I didn't even know it. The only reason I knew that he dropped out of the film is that he stopped answering my calls.
So he ghosted you.
Yeah. And you know what? I was angry about it at the time, but now I'm glad that it happened, because he didn't have that perseverance and that resiliency that I was looking for. The second person I actually had to dismiss, because it just was going from A off the chart, never was going to get to B. And the third one, I wanted one of the mountains to be about cancer, because everybody we all know somebody who's died of cancer or has cancer. And I found this wonderful woman with stage 4 cancer. I just loved her. And I thought, it seemed like according to her doctor she had time, but she didn't. And she passed away almost immediately as I started filming her. And I was very distraught about that. And I was like, oh, forget about the documentary film. I need to get over this. So I was able to compartmentalize that, put it over there. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table saying, okay, let me get back to my film. Gosh, I have hours and hours of films of these 3 people. I can't use any of it because all 3 of them are gone. But I finally wound up with the 3 that
it's so sad because when doing this and you have settled on someone because you had to find them. I don't know how you found these people because you don't work in a newsroom where one tells one and you have all these resources in a newsroom. You had to like look these people up or find them somewhere. I mean, did you use support groups or anything?
Many different sources all over the place, whatever you can think of. Oh yeah.
And a lot of time. How long do you think this film took for you to make? From A to Z?
Oh, 2 years for that first one.
Wow.
The other ones went much quicker.
Well, it was your first, you know, totally understand that. And I think you probably value that in retrospect because it taught you everything.
Yeah.
You tragically lost a few. Somebody ghosted you. Welcome to the world of regular producing, right? I mean, that happens all the time. But when you're doing a private thing with a goal in mind, I feel like maybe you could use some of those clips at some point in the future.
Yeah. Maybe.
Because you've probably got some good stuff on camera. Yeah. You know, that people might want, families might want to see eventually in perseverance of other people. So-and-so tried. Anyway, it's your filmmaking, not mine. All right, so that was 3 cameos. How was the film received?
It was received wonderfully. I wanted to get into that a little later because it was a build-on of a couple of other films that I had.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk about that. We'll pick up on that because it's not like you have, I'm the head of the AMC theaters and I'm going to put it in my chain of theaters.
Right.
So there's extra work in just trying to get people to see it and I guess entering it in festivals and things like that as well.
A little bit of that, but once I get into the second film, you'll see how it's reflected in the first film.
Okay, good, because the second film, I'm just going to say it now, I loved that film. It's called The Smith Perspective. That is my favorite of all of your films. That is where I feel that I saw James' heart and soul the most in this family. Talk about who the Smiths are. I still cannot get over that film.
We talked to I think it was 2 or 3 doctors, and they said it's inoperable. We can't touch it. If we go in that area, it'll kill her. So what if we get the tumor out? What are our chances of full recovery? They said, well, they're slim. If we enter that area of the brain, if we can get all the tumor, she's likely going to be paralyzed on the right side.
I guess because I'm a people person, and your films this is about a family, a team in a way, and how they work together. Tell me more.
Yes. The Smith Perspective absolutely fell into my lap. Now, you probably could make the argument that all 4 of my documentary films fell into my lap because I don't seek out the subjects of my documentary film. The subjects of my documentary film come to me. And that's the way it was with the Smith Perspective.
But how?
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, the Smith Perspective is a beautiful story about this family of 4, mother, father, and 2 sons. And I was having a business meeting with the husband, the father of the family. And it was a one-to-one business meeting. It was at a coffee shop. And when you have these meetings, lots of times you talk about personal stuff. And Joe Smith started talking to me about his family. And by the end of the one-on-one meeting, I looked at him straight in the eye and I kind of folded my arms and said, hey, Joe, I want to do a documentary film on your family. And he said, what? And I said, your story needs to be told. I want to tell it. And it's got merit. Your story has merit. So that's how it came to be. Now, when I make a documentary film, if it's in my heart to make it, nothing's going to stop me from making the film. Okay? I don't care how long it takes to make. I don't care what it costs. And I also don't care how hard it is. Okay? And the challenge with the Smith perspective was I had to get Joe Smith to convince his family to be in the film, and he did. And as the film progresses, as you're watching the film, you immediately know why I made the film, okay? Because it's centered around the mother of the, she's the matriarch of the family, and how her husband rallies around her and her two sons, okay?
And what's going on with her?
She is a quadriplegic, all right, and she also has some difficulty with vocalizations and stuff like that. By the time you get to the end of the film, when the music fades down to zero, when the end credits are rolling and the picture goes black, you go, you know, this is a story about courage. It's a story about family values, and the Smith family teaches the family values very well.
100%.
Yes, they teach us what to be put on the front burner and what goes on the back burner. Material things belong on the back burner, as they teach us. But at the end of the film, you go, you know, I might need to reevaluate what I'm putting forward first in my life, and that was the thing. Now, there's a kicker to that film, all right. That was actually shown in the AFI theaters in Silver Spring, Maryland. 3 Cameos was also shown at AFI theaters in Silver Spring, Maryland, and that kind of how it tied it together. I built up from there about that AFI theater. The thing with the Smith perspective is when it ended and the lights went up in the theater and everybody's sitting in the audience, I brought the Smith family up on stage.
I was there.
Yes.
And I was like dying. I couldn't believe it. It was a moment.
Yeah.
It was an Olympic moment. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I was in that theater watching that film going, James did this? I mean, it was incredible. And you brought the family out. And what did you do? You showed them off. You showed them off. You're like, here they are. They're real. They're alive.
I let them talk. I try not to talk at all.
You really did let them talk.
Yeah,
Because really, that's what I love about you, is you put your heart and soul into that film so much. And I'm wondering if you intended, as the film went on, because I'm sure you didn't know everything that was going to happen. You just wanted to tell their story of how they deal with this quadriplegic mother who is the matriarch of the family. And did you plan on sort of having that be a little bit of a lesson thing, like a reevaluation of priorities, as you mentioned?
I did.
So you planned that?
I did. When I was having that coffee with him.
To plan, yeah. Oh, that's when it hit you.
Oh, yeah, and I'm so embarrassed. He started talking about business, and I wasn't listening to him. I was just thinking about that.
So that's a true artist, in a way, who gets an idea. The light bulb goes off. As Oprah would say, aha moment. And you saw it as a story. How long did that film take you? Because you followed them around and really showed a relationship. And that was not easy to do, considering their situation. So you started, that came out in 2019. How long did that one take you?
Not that long.
Really?
I'm the most efficient little son of a gun you're ever going to meet.
Good for you. So you say you're an efficient son of a gun. Technologically, it's also something to do a documentary, and it's different than shooting a wedding. Even I know that. I'm not a permanent shooter. I've shot in my time. But how do you manage to stay on top of things technologically, and because you travel, you have to have a different set of, I guess, equipment than you would have for just showing up at a wedding. Am I right?
Oh gosh, yes. It is so hard to stand on the cutting edge, You know, I first started and I used to shoot on VHS. I don't even know if half of our audience knows what VHS is.
Probably not.
But from VHS to Super VHS, and then it was digital tape, and then we shoot on cards. And I shot my first documentary film, 3 Cameos, on an HD system. And then it graduated to 4K, high definition.
Didn't that cost a fortune?
It sure did. It sure did. It cost a fortune, but...
All those weddings are funding not just your mortgage for you and your wife, but this whole hobby.
Yeah, it is.
That's a ton of money.
And staying on top of the cutting edge was difficult for me because I'm an artsy type guy. And the technical part is a little bit of a challenge for me.
I can't believe that.
Oh, yeah.
With all your editing equipment and your shooting equipment and tripods and...
Oh, darling, when I'm sitting in front of the editor, all is right with the world, baby.
Because you love to edit?
Oh my gosh, I love editing.
Why do you love editing?
Oh my God. I can tell you, oh goodness gracious, this story will probably take too long. We'll see if this works. The first film that I ever made, it was the worst movie that's ever been made. It was me and my buddy. And we had tons and tons of VHS tapes, and I went to this self-editing place. And the guy said, well, I sit with you for the first hour and then you take over. And I said, well, I want your studio for 3 days. I went, 3 days? What do you, make a movie? And I did. He said, all right, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. So he puts me in this glass booth, and about a couple of hours later, he taps on the glass and goes, 5 minutes? And I said, well, I don't know that we were breaking for lunch. I didn't bring any lunch. I mean, do I get charged for this? It was 5 of 5. And I knew that what I was going to do for the rest of my life at that very moment. I said, I'm going to be an editor.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, 25?
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. That is amazing to experience that moment and then know what you're going to do. So is shooting extra and editing is where your magic really happens?
God, I love both of them. I get so excited for both. I can't believe I have a job. They pay me for this? Not for the documentary films, but for everything else. I can't believe I
you can get editing jobs. One of my goals in life, because I also love editing, but in my day, of course, editing changed from 3/4 inch, which was before Super V, to, like you said, all of that other stuff. Anyway, and it's just very, very different, but very, very efficient.
Yeah. 3 cameos took forever because I kept losing the people, but the Smith family was intact. So I don't think that was more than 4 or 5 months, maybe 4
Including
months.
editing?
Yeah.
You are an editor extraordinaire. And I just want to mention, you're editing the show for me. Thank you. Because I know it's going to be efficient and exact, and I really appreciate that. But in this case, did you feel, what was the fallout from that one? Because that's the one I fawn over the most.
I have had the 4 people, the 4 films I've made, I secretly say, hey, guys, for the people who have seen all 4 films, what's your favorite? All 4 of them get votes, but the Smith perspective gets the most votes.
And it's because it is so personal and so intimate. And you really, I think I see you in the shooting and in the interviews, in the selection of shots, because editing also tells a story. I'm going to ask you about that in a minute. But the Smith perspective, did you enter it in any festivals or anything? I thought that should be seen by everybody.
I'm not really a festival type of guy. I kind of make my documentary films. The reason why I make them is not for festivals and stuff like that. I just want to change the little eensy-weensy bit part of my world and my little corner to make a positive change in people.
That's why we connect so well. That's what I wanted to do with this show. A non-profit, non-salaried, everybody working for free show for 30 some odd years. And I feel that's kind of why we connect so well. Because if you can just change a little bit of someone's day somehow with some information or something they can use or to inspire them or keep them going, especially in this day and age, that is everything.
And it really comes into play by the 4th film, which I guess we'll
talk about in part 2. That's true. We'll talk about in part 2.
Yeah.
I feel like even though you don't make films for festivals, you should enter it around because films get publicity and then they're seen. And for you to get the AFI Theater that day and invite all these people, and it was a packed house, I was like so enthralled. And, you know, so much respect and admiration for the work it took to put into that film. I'll never get over it because that is one film that, you know, I would pay to see at a box office.
Oh,
because it's so much better having that kind of documentary than some of the, I guess, commercial films. And I'm a big doc fan, so I love documentaries. But this was so real and so raw. By the way, how is the Smith family today?
Oh, they're doing fantastic.
Because you just keep thinking the other shoe is going to drop with this mom who is disabled and how they have to rally around her and survive. And now they're thriving, you're saying?
Yes, yes. Oh, I'm very much in touch with Joe Smith all the time. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
He's been great.
And it was great to hear him chatting at the end and talking about his family and everything. He's an excellent spokesman.
Yes, he is.
Just to mention a little bit more about the film, because I'm still very crazy about it. The 2 sons are, how old are they during the film? Because they're not babies. They're old enough to participate, but too young to decide the fate of the family, right?
Right. They're
still growing.
They're still growing. One of them just got married. The older one just got married, well, I think about I think it was about a year ago or so. And then the other one is still thriving, and he's the younger one. But yeah, they're both doing very well. And the mother's doing well as well.
That's amazing that the mother is doing so well, because I don't know how they pulled together when you have someone so severely disabled and you are not wealthy and you have everything, I guess, working not against you, but it's a hard road. Anyone who has a disabled person in their lives, and many of us do, have to work extra hard to care for that person. We know that caregiving is a big deal, and I have done a lot on this show on caregiving because it is such an investment. And that is your caregiving was in the care you took in making this film, which it still blew my mind, and I can't stop talking about it. And I'm going to once again mention jamesbonatovideo.com, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I forget websites. But that film, that's where people can go to see your films, right?
Absolutely. You can see all 4 of the films on the website.
Okay, and that's free. You can. James is not charging any money. He just wants to share an experience, and I also especially want to share the one on the Smith family because it's so amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful film, and I'm glad to see that the family is surviving. All right. Well, we have 2 more films to go. And we're going to enjoy those in the next part. So in the meantime, temporarily, I'm going to say thank you to James. And once again, it's jamesbonatovideo.com. And just if you want to get in touch with me, as always, it's FOMO21KA@gmail.com. And I get so many emails. Kidding, I need some emails. Please communicate with me, okay? I'd love to hear what you think about this show or any of the others that we have done. And anyway, so I'm Karen Allen. We will see you next time. And James next time too. Take care. See you in part 2. Bye-bye.